The moment Tracy Harlow walked into the office, I knew the temperature had dropped despite the July heat outside our Seattle headquarters. It wasn't just the way her designer pumps slammed against the concrete floor like she had a vendetta against tile work, or the fact that her entourage of fresh-faced tech futurists looked like they'd wandered off the set of a canceled Netflix pilot. No, I knew it when she saw me knitting in the corner of the engineering pit and said in a faux sweet tone, "Oh, hun, you can leave your yarn at home. We're building Web3 here." The entire floor froze. I swear you could hear the printer reboot 2 rooms away. I didn't look up. I slipped the last stitch from my needle, clipped the yarn clean, and slid the half-finished sock into my tote like I'd been rehearsing for this exact moment. Because I had. This wasn't my first time being dismissed by someone who thought charisma beat competence. But this was the first time she came with the title of Chief Innovation Officer and full access to our production environment. Tracy Harlow, newly hired niece of the board chair, was here to disrupt. That's startup speak for firing veterans and replacing them with buzzword addicts. Quick sidebar. If this taste of tactical revenge has you curious, hit that subscribe button, would you? We've got more quiet justice queued up than Tracy has hair extensions. Appreciate you. Back to her. That afternoon, she called an all-hands meeting, perched herself on a bar stool like a self-help guru, and gave a TED Talk on synergy and scale. Never once looked at me. Even while announcing the restructuring, she skimmed right over my face like I was part of the furniture. Her assistant, a boot camp grad named Kyle, handed out org charts. Next to my name, transition resource. I've seen breakups handled with more grace. That night, I stayed late. Not because I had to, because I wanted them to watch me. I packed my yarn, booted my backup drive, opened the encrypted folder MH Core v3.2. Inside 3 registered patents, 6 custom modules, and the entire spine of their flagship platform, licensed on my terms. Under my LLC. They forgot I knit and I architect. Triple backups. Always. 1 on my local drive. 1 on a cold storage SSD tucked behind a photo album in my Denver apartment, and 1 on an offshore server in Vancouver I set up after the first red flag back in Q1, right when they slashed the QA budget and tripled the influencer ad spend. That's not innovation. That's what I call check your parachute. The next morning, my keycard blinked red at the server room door. That's when I knew I was a ghost. And that's when I started smiling. Because when a ghost keeps receipts, she doesn't haunt. She bills. They called it a strategic modernization initiative, which is rich coming from a woman who once asked if Python was the one with the coffee bean logo. By the time I finished lunch, my title had shape-shifted from Senior Systems Architect to Heritage Infrastructure Advisor Contractor, which in HR code means don't sue us, but also don't touch anything. Build, queue, gone. Private Slack channel I founded back in 2015 with 3 engineers and a Domino's gift card archived. Last time I opened Jira, it said no tasks assigned. A new PM, some guy named Chase, with a hyphenated last name and an MBA in UX empathy, sent me a cheerful DM that read, "Hang tight while we realign roles." That emoji felt like a pat on the head with a brick. My calendar erased, no stand-ups, no check-ins, no retrospectives, just a digital ghost haunting a desk near the fire extinguisher. I could have walked the halls in neon rollerblades blaring Kenny Loggins and no one would have noticed. But here's the thing about being invisible. You hear everything. Tracy paraded around the office like she was pitching Shark Tank, tossing words like microservices and container scaling, while her dev team silently Googled definitions under the table. One day, she said the backend's plug and play. Right, I nearly laughed blood. That plug and play backend, I wrote it 5 languages, 3 clusters, and 2 years of duct tape and genius. Late one Thursday, I sat at my desk, now jammed behind a column, and opened a hard copy of my first consulting contract. Clause 9C, all proprietary systems remain property of M. Holden Solutions, LLC, unless explicitly transferred in writing. Spoiler, I never transferred a damn thing. I built my first algorithm on a borrowed ThinkPad with a cracked hinge, sleeping 3 hours a night and surviving on clearance protein bars. and an ancient MacBook I couldn't afford to update. When they finally offered me a full-time role, I smiled and kept every patent locked under my name where it belonged. I wasn't naive. I was loyal, not stupid. So when HR slid me a stack of transition paperwork, I read every line. Page 6 had the kicker some boilerplate clause asking me to reaffirm non-ownership of the platform components. I grabbed a red Sharpie, crossed it out in one stroke, and scribbled in block letters, IP exclusion retained per Clause 9CM, Holden Solutions, LLC. Signed it. Smiled. They thought they were sidelining me. Really, they'd just unclipped the safety on my counter-strike. It happened on a Tuesday, the kind of gray-skied bitter coffee morning that tastes like broken promises. I was at my desk, chewing a rock-hard biscotti, watching the build logs like a retiree at a slot machine. Nothing moved. Nothing loaded. My terminal was a tombstone. Then came the ping. Slack. Urgent channel. Everyone tagged. Tracy had meant to DM her new product lead, but instead she posted in the public dev thread. 43 engineers saw it in real time. Honestly, we need to purge the legacy dead weight. Morgan's still here. Why period? Cold. Surgical. That's the kind of message you write when you assume women like me have stopped reading or counting. You could hear the breath leave the room. One dev sent a confused emoji. Another quietly left the channel. Jonah, bless him, DM'd me. I'm so sorry. That was messed up. I gave him a thumbs up and finished my biscotti. 50 minutes later, HR pinged me. We'd like to touch base. Nothing good ever follows that sentence. We met in the glassed-in wellness room that smelled like cucumber and guilt. Rebecca from People Ops had her "I'm on your side" face ready, clutching a manila folder. Would you like some tea? No thanks. We're offering 6 weeks severance. We'd love for you to exit gracefully. Maybe even a LinkedIn rec, I nearly laughed. They wanted me gone politely, like I was a coffee stain they could wipe away. Of course, I said, smiling like a corpse bride on autopilot. No need to make this difficult. Rebecca looked visibly relieved, like she'd just diffused a ticking bomb with polite eye contact. She slid the paperwork across the table, legalese in 10-point font, sprinkled with HR's greatest hits, without prejudice, mutual agreement proprietary assignment. That last one nearly made me choke on my own professionalism. Clause 7. Employee relinquishes all claims to intellectual property associated with the platform. I clicked my pen, drew one clean red line through the sentence, and wrote neatly, confidently, in tight cursive, IP exclusion retained under Clause 9CM, Holden Solutions, LC. Initialed it. Slid the papers back like poker chips I didn't mind losing. Rebecca blinked, then blinked again. Oh, I'll need to run that by legal. Please do, I said. I'm happy to wait. She didn't have a poker face, just an awkward pause and a trembling smile. I left the room before she could find her voice again. I didn't need her approval. I had the receipts. That afternoon, I packed what little was left at my desk, my ceramic mug from DevCon 2014, a faded notebook full of back-end sketches from the early days, and the knitting needles Tracy had once mocked like they were medieval tools. I placed everything carefully into my canvas bag, like relics from a war no one else knew had already ended. No goodbyes, no farewell lunch. Just a quiet hallway filled with averted eyes and half-written Slack messages. They thought I was done. But I wasn't retreating. I was stepping out of the blast radius. Tracy had already pulled the pin. By Friday, I was vapor. No Slack. No GitHub commits. No more notes in Notion. Just a neat, sterile farewell email, wishing the team continued success in the exciting chapters ahead. Morgan, and then nothing. At first, they celebrated. I could practically hear the espresso machine frothing in rhythm with Tracy's mood. She strutted through meetings in 5-inch heels like she was headlining a startup runway show. They assumed I'd gone soft, knitting, gardening, maybe starting a blog about healthy transitions. Then Monday came, and Jonah texted, "And if you're ready to see what happens when the quiet ones build empires, not just systems, tap subscribe now, because the next chapter isn't just revenge, it's reinvention. Hey, do you know where the deployment config went? The pipeline's failing at the container registry? I didn't reply. I didn't have to. The answer was buried deep in a repo only I could touch. My structure, my conventions, the literal veins of the entire system. But it wasn't just the missing config. The architecture itself had started behaving like a haunted house. Doors where there should have been windows. Switches that didn't connect to anything. Worse systems began looping into themselves like a python devouring its own tail. Some poor new hire named Aiden tried to comment on one of my orchestration files. CPP Sauchep Chin Sua Ba Todu. What does Kronig mean? Kronig, an inside joke from 2018 between me and an engineer who now builds surfboards in Oregon. The tag triggered a 3:00 a.m. cron job that quietly handled CI rollback failovers. Without it, deployments hit the wall like birds on glass. Tracy, of course, refused to panic. She doubled down. "Bring in help," she barked on a team call, pacing in a leather jacket like an angry flight attendant. "There are offshore contractors who can clean this up in 2 weeks." And so they arrived. A crew from Romania, another from Hyderabad. Sharp people, talented people, all staring at my code like it was ancient runes carved into obsidian. Jonah told me one contractor quit mid-Zoom, muttering something about American spaghetti logic and impossible abstraction layers. Still, Tracy pushed forward. She wouldn't admit defeat, not with investor demos planned, and her LinkedIn full of buzzwords like next-gen architecture and disruption at scale. So she lit the fuse. They locked in a hard launch date, June 1st. No beta, no soft rollout, just one big swing. Behind the scenes, the dev team unraveled. Authentication failures in staging. Autoscalers that stopped scaling. Payment logs that spiraled into recursive errors, some of which pinged the founder's phone at 2:00 a.m. Then came the question. At a dev stand-up, the new CTO, some ex-McKinsey guy named Todd sporting Bitcoin cufflinks, asked, "Where's the pipeline schema?" Silence. Tension. Then Jonah said it. It was in Morgan's private repo. You could feel the pause. Tracy blinked. Private repo. They looked at each other like kids who just realized the babysitter bailed and the stove was on fire. The repo wasn't on the company's GitHub. It lived inside a mirrored vault server I'd set to sync weekly with my LLC's infrastructure. The same server that held every single contractually protected module. It was the same repo Tracy never bothered asking about because she assumed everything I ever built automatically belonged to her. But here's the thing about building something from scratch when it's just you, a whiteboard, and a lot of caffeine. You remember where you buried the bones. And Tracy, she didn't even bring a shovel. Jonah was different. The kind of developer who still believes skill should outrank buzzwords. Poor guy. While the rest of them tried to convince themselves the back end wasn't duct taped together with hope and deprecated packages, Jonah was the one quietly digging. Late nights, head down. Between failed builds and Tracy's daily Slack affirmations, trust the journey. Build with boldness, he was the one actually pulling threads. And that's when he found it. A single line of code hidden deep inside a container orchestration script, half obscured by shorthand and years of tech debt. He opened the file path, followed the dependency tree, and froze. These weren't helper modules. They were the spine of the entire platform, the API throttle, the caching infrastructure, the event handler that managed synchronous batch processing during peak hours. My architecture. M. Holden. IP Stack v3.2. My baby. He flagged it in the dev thread. Hey, just noticed this is still pulling from the MA chip modules. Should we confirm the license? Tracy responded 3 minutes later like she was brushing lint off a blazer. Just comment it out, as if you could comment out a central nervous system. Jonah didn't argue. He just quietly forked the code, downloaded the full dependency list, mapped every import, every nested class, every signature that whispered my name in the logs, like a ghost scratching from inside the walls. Meanwhile, I was in my Denver kitchen, sipping lukewarm Earl Grey and watching it all unfold. 2 weeks earlier, I deployed a simple cloud function, a little watchdog script. Every time one of my modules got pinged by an external IP, It logged the hit, timestamped it, and queued a billing entry. No blocking. That would have been merciful. It just listened and counted. One ping became 10. 10 became hundreds. Dev environment. Staging. Even the investor demo sandbox. Still running on my code. My terms. And the invoices. Oh, they were just getting warmed up. Launching all the invoices at once would have been dramatic. But I wasn't here for theater. I was here for clarity. It started quietly. One email from invoices, mholdensolutions.com. Subject line, Q2 license, usage report M. Holden Solutions, LLC. Attached a simple CSV, timestamps, module names, usage counts, line item subtotals, no threats, no drama, just business. Legal hadn't seen it. Tracy definitely hadn't. They were too busy finalizing the launch stream and slapping buzzwords on fake mission walls in a rented WeWork downtown. The space had been turned into a tech carnival, ring lights branded mugs, and interns posting hashtags they couldn't spell. But Jonah had seen the signs. The unexplained latency, the ghost modules no one dared touch, the comments no one deleted, the eerie smoothness of a system that was running despite itself. He messaged me once. Just one line. You planned this, didn't you? I didn't answer. Not because I was being clever, because I was busy adding a new column to the invoice template. Per seat licensing, optional upgrade, retroactive fees, enabled. The fire hadn't started, but the air was getting warm. And soon enough, the office began to smell like panic sweat and burnt cold brew. Tracy had locked in a full product launch for June 1st. No beta, no test market, just one giant swing at the spotlight. They'd rented a co-working loft with distressed brick neon signage and Instagrammable lighting. Social media interns were treating the event like a startup Super Bowl. Hashtags everywhere. East next gen backend. AI imagined a stitch built different. None of them mentioned me. None of them could. They didn't even know whose bones they were standing on. Tracy. She was still rehearsing her speech in front of the bathroom mirror, oblivious to the rot beneath her sneakers. Meanwhile, the dev team unraveled. Late nights, sloppy merges, features ghosting in production. Jonah patched what he could thread by fraying thread. But even duct tape loses grip. Then he sent Tracy a formal email, subject relicensing risk with MHStack v3. 2. Urgent body. The current system runs on proprietary components authored by M. Holden Solutions. I believe we are not licensed for commercial deployment. She read it. I know she did. Gmail logs don't lie. She clicked it. Spent 47 seconds on it, then hit delete. No reply. No meeting. No concern. Just a shiny LinkedIn post that afternoon. So proud of this team. We're redefining back-end performance and trust. Stay tuned. June 1st. Her ignorance wasn't passive anymore. It was metastatic. Tracy floated through planning meetings like a walking press release, wearing that fixed smirk and rattling off phrases that sounded like a BuzzFeed listicle for venture capitalists, scalable cloud-native containers, disruptive workflow paradigms, intelligent back-end orchestration. Morgan, who Jonah tried again. He quietly flagged legal. No response. Because here's the thing. No one wants to hear a ghost story when they're throwing confetti. Meanwhile, I wasn't lurking, wasn't plotting, just documenting. At 3:12 a.m. on May 18th, I uploaded a set of PDFs to the U.S. Copyright Office via the e-filing portal, the full source code of M. Holden Stack v3.2. Every class, every line, annotated, stamped, dated. By May 20th, it was live. Public record, M. Holden Solutions, LLC, System Architecture and Scalable Backend Design, v3.2. No theatrics, no press release, just a time-stamped landmine hiding in plain sight. I made one change that day, one update to my company's website. All active modules must be covered under valid licensing agreements. Automated usage tracking in place. Reports processed monthly. No threats. Just clarity. Back in Launchland, Tracy was debating which side to part her hair for the live stream. Meanwhile, the dev team was one commit away from collapse. No one spoke up. Fear does that. June 1st was locked, and the closer it got, the louder the silence grew. Then came launch day, wrapped in fresh paint, fake confidence, and startup gloss. The live stream began at exactly 10:00 a.m., right on cue. Tracy strutted onto a rented stage in white sneakers and a cropped blazer radiating tech messiah energy. Behind her, the big screen flashed, "Meet the future." Adaptive back-end AI, redesigned from the ground up. Funny thing, though, the ground that was still mine. Funny thing about that tagline, redesigned from the ground up, because the ground, still mine. The demo worked, mostly. A little lag, one glitchy modal with placeholder Latin, a rogue alert box that screamed lorem ipsum like a ghost in the code. But Tracy played it cool, smiling like she'd just launched a rocket instead of a time bomb. Investors clapped in the live stream chat. Twitter buzzed. The founder off camera dabbed a tear like it was a moon landing. At 10:41 a.m., 3 minutes after the final applause, the first domino fell. A soft ping hit the accounting inbox. From invoice, mholdensolutions.com. Subject IP license, Q1 usage report. M. Holden Solutions, LLC attachment, a clean, quiet CSV. Timestamps, server calls, environment breakdowns, dev staging production demo. Final line amount due, 182,600 USD. The intern running that inbox flagged it as spam. But 40 minutes later, legal caught it. Their director, a poor guy named Bryce, who still wore shirt, stays, forwarded it with a red flag tag to Tracy and looped in the CFO. "This looks enforceable. We need to talk. Now." Tracy skimmed it, paused, then typed back, "Ignore it. We've moved off that code." Except they hadn't. At 12:07 p.m., Jonah replied, all attached 2 screenshots. One showing active calls to MHStack v3. 2 core. One from the deployment logs, time-stamped during the live stream. His message was surgical. "We are currently running on unlicensed code. This invoice is not spam." That's when the panic started. Legal went silent. Never a good sign. Slack channels erupted. Accounting pinged engineering. Engineering pinged DevOps. Tracy locked herself in the launch room, chewing her thumbnail like it held answers. Then came the kicker. Jonah dropped one more message, this time in Harris Leadership Ops. Just confirmed with the U.S. Copyright Office. Code registered to M. Holden Solutions on May 20th. Public record? Silence. At 12:53 p.m., Bryce from Legal followed up, also, per the original consulting contract license. Auto renewals required 30-day confirmation. Per attached notice, Morgan Holden revoked auto renewal 48 hours ago. Received, logged, enforceable, avoidable. But Tracy, she'd been too busy picking launch day Instagram filters. The CFO's voice was reportedly heard 2 floors down. "What do you mean we owe her $180,000? The party fizzled. Investors ghosted. The champagne stayed corked. Tracy stared at the invoice again this time, with her ego deflating like a pool float in winter. That's when she noticed the part she'd missed. Additional usage above threshold will incur tiered licensing fees, billed per seat. And somewhere in my quiet Denver apartment with a purring cat and an unopened bottle of Chianti on the counter, I clicked to send on the Q2 projected invoice. By the next morning, the buzz had turned sour. What was supposed to be a triumphant launch story had become an inside-out piñata of liability and humiliation. Tech journalists started circling like digital vultures. First, a subtle tweet from a freelancer. Hearing whispers of a licensing debacle at yesterday's launch. M. Holden Solutions named in back-end dispute. Then a thread. Then a headline. Startup's big launch built on unlicensed IP sources. Say. Legal trouble brewing. The same investors who'd been dropping champagne emojis in Tracy's inbox the day before now sent links to Reddit threads. One wrote, "Please clarify." Urgent. Cannot be exposed to litigation. Another is Morgan Holden suing you. I wasn't. Didn't need to. The contracts were doing the talking for me. By noon, the board called an emergency meeting. The founder looked like he hadn't slept. The CFO's left eye was twitching like Morse code. Tracy tried to steady the ship with the same line she'd been rehearsing all morning. It's a clerical oversight. We're reviewing licensing and we'll resolve this amicably. Bryce from legal, now very much not Team Tracy, slid a folder across the table. Inside my original consulting agreement, annotated, highlighted, with Clause 9C circled in blue ink. Proprietary IP licensed under M. Holden Solutions, LLC. No transfer of ownership. Below it, my termination notice sent 2 days before launch. Signed, time-stamped, received. This isn't a threat, Bryce said. It's enforceable. How much the founder croaked. $182,600. And with Q2 projections and per-seat usage, closer to $460,000. That's when someone gasped. A junior board member turned her phone around. A clip from Tracy's now private TikTok. She was laughing into the camera. Morgan, that woman just knits and coasts. We rebuilt everything she touched. This is my platform now. The room froze. She hadn't rebuilt anything. She hadn't even read the documents she'd signed. Jonah, sitting off to the side with his arms folded, finally spoke. Didn't rebuild it. We reskinned it. The core's still Morgan's. The founder turned to Tracy. Is that true? For the first time in months, she had no comeback, no slogan, just silence. The board didn't yell. That would have been merciful. They just sat, rigid, horrified, and completely still. Finally, someone asked Bryce from legal, "What happens if we don't pay?" He didn't blink. She'll pursue collection. And if it goes to court, she has time-stamped commits, licensing contracts, deployment logs, federal copyright registration, and usage reports that link directly to live traffic during the stream. We'd lose. Publicly. Fast. The founder rubbed his face like he was trying to wipe away the last 3 years of bad decisions. Get her on the phone. But Morgan Holden doesn't take calls, especially not from people who laughed at her for knitting during deployment weeks while she was building the engine they were now bleeding from. The only sound left in the room was the faint buzz of a paused TikTok clip. Tracy's voice still hung in the air. Morgan, that woman just knits and coasts. Correction. That woman built the infrastructure you're now drowning in. The emergency board meeting was held behind soundproof glass. Ironic, since the shouting could be heard from the parking lot. Tracy arrived 10 minutes late, flanked by her usual entourage of curated silence and empty confidence. No heels this time. Just white sneakers and a blazer that now looked like armor without an army. The founder didn't sit. He stood at the head of the table, arms crossed, spine bowed under the weight of every VC promise he'd ever made. Who did this? He asked brittle. No one answered. Bryce quietly slid another invoice across the table. Q2 projection, $460,000. Attached full copyright confirmation, 3 ignored notices. Jonah by the door didn't look up. Just said, we all knew. No one listened. Even the CFO, usually stone still, finally spoke. You built this company on stolen tech. Tracy's jaw moved, but no sound came out. She flipped through the documents like she could erase them by smudging the ink. The founder cleared his throat. This is a formal request for your resignation effective immediately. Tracy didn't cry. She didn't argue. She just stood up like someone had finally whispered the truth loud enough to crack through her curated confidence. She left without a word. The door clicked shut behind her like a gavel. Later that afternoon, my inbox pinged. Subject, M. Holden Licensing. Open to negotiation. From some poor executive at launchcode.com. Tone desperate, dressed as diplomatic. Dear Miss Holden, in light of recent misunderstandings, we like to reopen a dialogue regarding renegotiating the licensing terms of your intellectual property. We hope to arrive at an agreement mutually beneficial to both parties. Sincerely, the Board of Directors. I didn't reply. Instead, I sipped wine from a glass the size of a small fishbowl, seated beneath a pergola in a vineyard just north of Florence. My laptop hummed beside me. A cat I didn't own snored across my sandals. The hills looked like green velvet under a sun too tired to gloat. I logged into my licensing portal, opened the pricing dashboard, clicked Edit Terms. Under Global License Agreement, I changed one line, perceived pricing, enabled retroactive fees, applicable, clicked Save. Closed the laptop, picked up my knitting. Silence is powerful. So is paperwork. And spite, especially when paired with excellent legal counsel and a long memory. I never raised my voice, never stormed a meeting, never slammed a door. But when the reckoning came, they knew exactly who lit the match. There's something deeply satisfying about watching patience win over ego. It reminds us real power isn't in the loudest voice. It's in the smartest contract. So when they mock your quiet, your hobbies, your stillness, don't get mad. Get meticulous. I didn't burn the building down. I just took back what was mine, line by line, clause by clause, until the silence spoke louder than any outburst ever could. If you made it this far, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Tell me what you would have done. Have you ever been underestimated, overlooked, or written off as too quiet to matter? I want to know your story. Because let's be honest, the world doesn't need more noise. It needs people who know how to move with precision. And if this story made you sit a little taller, smile a little sharper, or take a second look at that contract collecting dust in your inbox, then hit subscribe. Not for me, for every version of you that's ever been told to stay in the background. Here's what I've learned. You don't have to yell to win. You don't need to prove your worth to people too distracted to see it. Just do the work. Own your work. Document everything. And when the time comes, let your paperwork do the talking. Quiet doesn't mean weak. It means prepared. And trust me, they never see the quiet ones coming.